Today we're going to talk about the production report, or more commonly called the PR. The reason I want to talk about that document is because it seems that a lot of people are afraid of doing paperwork, and when we say production report, all the PAs that I've worked for, the young ADs, you can see the fear in their eyes because they're like, "Oh my God, it's paperwork, and I don't know how to do that." Well, as much as people know how to do a call sheet, or at least a basic one, feels like no one knows how to do PR. And it's very surprising because these documents go hand in hand. If you know how to do one, it's very likely you know how to do the second one, or at least you're going to know how to do it with very, very little explanation. So today I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you just, enough so you can do your own PRs, and the next time that you go on a movie, you can offer that service to the production manager or line producer, or if they ask you to do that, then you'll be able to without being scared. So I'm not going to go into the little details, but just talk about everything in general. So first of all, what is a production report? Well, the production report, like I said, is the match to the call sheet. I mean that if the call sheet says that we're going to be doing this and that tomorrow, well, the PR says what we've actually done on the day of shooting. It's kind of a debriefing of what happened. And who does that document go to? Well, it goes to a few people. On one side, it goes to your producers and executive producers, and it gives them an idea of what happened that day and that, everything is going well. Because it's hard to, even if they're on set, it might be difficult to know, the numbers. It's not something that you really see from Video Village. And then the second set of people that it goes to are the people who are involved with the financial side of the movie. So your production manager or your production accountant. A PR is one way to see whether or not we're spending too much money. The next best way to figure that out is doing what we call a hot cost. But I'm not going into that today. So the production report we're looking at is the production report contained in the Casper template. If you've never heard of that, just Google Casper call sheet template, and you should be able to find the website from ThinkCrew. They do an amazing job at providing a call sheet and production report template. And as you can see towards the bottom of the screen, there's a bunch of tabs with other documents. The Casper template is a little bit more simplified than the one you're looking at right now. That's my version. But overall, it's a fantastic tool to be working with when you're an assistant director. So very quickly, we're going to start top left. We are seeing blank here because it's supposed to be the production company. And production company's info, and here you have all your producers, directors, whatnot. If my call sheet was filled, this would appear, not blank, but because I haven't prepped anything, it's that way. Then on the right side, this should be the day that you shot. So let's say June 1st, boom. And then this should be the day of shooting. So again, if my call sheet was made properly, this would reflect, but let's say we're on day one. Why not? Date started would be today, because that's the first day, and schedule finish, let's say 20 days from now, plus a few days off. So I'm going to say plus 25. Why not? And the estimated finish is the same date. Script and schedule color should also be coming from the front of your call sheet, meaning it's the version of the script or the schedule. If you're not familiar with that, you can just Google that up. Basically, the first schedule that comes out, or first script that comes out, you call the white, and then you go blue, pink, yellow, and you can see on the right side of my screen actually these little words here, because we use those for call sheets and for production reports if needed. But there's a whole cycle of colors that you can use. Next, I go to this middle section. So this is a snapshot of the entire project, and it's not going to change much on the day-to-day. Here we see we have 20 days scheduled for the first unit. I'm going to leave second unit empty. You could put your rehearsal test days there if you want. For a very small project, no one's really going to care, honestly. And then days actual, well, that's our first day of shooting, so that's days 1. But if you had shot 3 days, well, you would put 3. And it is possible that you'll go beyond the scheduled days if you're behind or they decide to add some shooting days. So it could be 21 by the end of your shooting. It's possible. Here I'm going to leave it at 1. And on the far right, very simple, either on schedule, ahead, or behind. So that's up to you, the second AD, when you do that document, to figure out whether you're on schedule, ahead, or behind. Sometimes it's very simple. Let's say you didn't shoot a scene on the first day. Well, you're going to be behind. But let's say you didn't shoot a scene, but you managed to schedule something that was on, the schedule for later on. You managed to sneak that in today. Well, you kind of, made up a scene. You missed one and you got one that you were not supposed to get. So maybe you can consider yourself on schedule. It's all a bit tricky, but it's up to you to figure that out. And also, some people, it's funny, some people don't like you to put behind because it looks bad, even though if it's a reality sometimes. So be careful if there's political issues in there. Then we have all the scenes that we've shot that day. So very simple, if I had my call sheet prep, this would show up, but let's say scene, 1, apple, why not? And the set was the interior kitchen. Boom, that's all we need. You just need the number and the header and we'll know what we're talking about. And you'll see here there's a lot of hidden rows. I'm going to hide just in case you have a lot of scenes there. And location would be your locations for the day. So it could be one or it could be several. Moving on down, this whole section here, the information is going to be provided by your script supervisor, who's your best friend. I mean, if you didn't know it already, if you work as a first AD or second AD or second AD, the script supervisor is your best friend. She's the most wonderful person in the world, and she's going to give you that information at the end of the day. Most often, she will have her own report, her daily report, and she will give it to you, and you'll file it in your day file. And the information that's on that report is going to let you populate this. So start from the top left. Our script, let's say we have, well, this is the total script. Let's say we have 110 scenes. Why not? And we have 90 pages of script. Because it's my first day of shooting, the line that is previous is not going to have anything in it. Basically, that's your previous day of shooting. So if you're on day 2, previous means day 1, and if you're day 3, it's day 2, and so forth. And that today, we're going to see what we've shot. So just to make it more, clear, I'm going to make up a few bullshit scenes, and let's say they all happen in the kitchen. Boom. So we shot 3 scenes today. So let's say today, 3 scenes, and there were maybe a total of 7 pages. Why not? Boom. Or 7 3/8. You want to be as accurate as needed here, of course. Minutes are the actual minutes that you've shot today, and so again, the script supervisor will be the one giving you that. So let's say if we shot 7 pages in 3/8, maybe it's like 6:30. And watch out here, if you're using Casper, you don't want to forget the 0 at the beginning, otherwise it gives you 6 hours. So let's say we shot 6 minutes and 30 seconds. And as far as setups go, we did, I don't know, 35 setups. Boom. So that's the number of camera setups. And again, the script supervisor is recording that. Now, if you're shooting multicam, then you can, break that down per camera, or you can just, ignore that and just use this. And sound, that is the quantity of sound that you've shot. So think about the data. So that won't be given to you by the script supervisor. You'll have to go to your sound mixer and ask him for that number, or you go to your DIT and ask him for that number, even better. So let's say we got, I don't know, 18.5 gigs. Why not? It's really a random number. And you can abbreviate gigs however you want it. And so total, for some reason my formula is missing. Boom, boom. And that's not working. Great. Let's just do that. So here we go. I've got my total numbers, and I can see also that, to be taken is subtraction from the total and the what I've shot. So 110 pages minus and 110 scenes minus 3 equal 107. That's what's left. And as you go, during the shoot, that number is gonna diminish. And at the end, you should end up with, 0, unless you've made a mistake somewhere. And again, it's not a bad idea to sometimes, give a copy of the production report to the script supervisor just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Scenes shot today, also information that's given to you by the script supervisor. She's going to give you the numbers. So 1 apple, 13, 27, and maybe she'll tell you like, oh, we also grabbed a voiceover for 27 apple, and you can put it like that, however you want. Schedule but not shot would be if you missed one of those scenes, you would put it there. And notes would be anything that your script supervisor has as far as notes goes. It's the important notes, not all the stuff that she takes on the side. So maybe there'll be something like, I don't know, I don't really remember, but something important about continuity or missing something or, really important thing to match later on, blah, blah, blah. And then finally, she will also have these times, if you don't have a script supervisor, you try to have a PA give you that information. Crew call, 7 a.m., shooting call, let's say we're up shooting by 7:42, boom. The first shot was technically 7:42, but let's say we're a little bit late and we didn't shoot until 8. That's what you would put here. So boom. First meal was on time. So we're going to put that here. First meal in would be when you came back from lunch. So maybe, good like 45 minutes later. For some reason, this is not formatting right. Boom. Yeah, whatever. First shot after, again, your script supervisor will tell you, let's say 2 p.m., why not? And again, second meal, blah, blah, blah. Camera wrap, let's say, 7 p.m., and then crew wrap was when should be the same time, boom, because usually the crew wraps at the same time as camera, unless extraordinary circumstances. Production does not count in that crew wrap. And last man is going to be whenever the last person left, so maybe let's say an hour later, when production and transpo is out. So here you go, you've got that. Now, it's also worth noting that regarding the shooting call and the first shot after, sometimes you'll work on a production that's big enough where that information needs to be communicated to the production office when it actually happens and not at the end of the day. So at 7:42, some people will be like, oh, are we shooting yet? Are we shooting yet? And then by 8 a.m. you'll say, we got first shot. So just to make sure that everyone's aware. If, you're an hour and a half late on your first shot, then you definitely want the production office to have that information so that they can, check in with the people that are, in charge. Of course, it's your first AD. It's also, the director or DP and see, and your line producer and see what happens and how that can be avoided the next day. And again, like, this is very important for the financial side because if I'm late by an hour and a half on my first shot, then I know that I've wasted a lot of money. So it's something that's really useful for everyone. Going down, we're going to have the cast information. So this is what you would collect from the exhibit G that comes to you every day from the PAs. And let's say, we're going to have a couple of characters and it's not popping up because I forgot why, but it should pop up. Is it the color of the text for some reason? No. What's going on here? That's a mighty good question here. There's got to be some conditional formatting in there that prevents me from doing that. I don't remember. But anyways, you put the names. This is a match to your call sheet. And so let's say this guy was start work. She was start work as well. And then you're going to put whether or not they had an NDB, and then what time they reported, what time they're on set, dismissed, and dismissed from hair and makeup, plus their lunch. So all that information is a snapshot of how much these people are getting paid. So of course, most often CAS is on a flat deal, but you never know. You want to put that in there, same thing with meal penalties and such. Again, it just gives you a really good financial overview of what happens. And it's really important to keep track of that because maybe a month later down the road, it's possible that the movie you worked on will be distributed to a platform that was not anticipated. And very likely that in that case, a cast would be entitled to some bumps. And so the bumps will be calculated based off of the time that you've recorded. And if you haven't done your job properly, then everyone's in trouble. So always remember to do that correctly. Then we go down to the next section and we have the background. So same thing here, except for background we deal in large quantities. So NO stands for the number of background. So let's say we had 15 people at the minimum wage rate, or actually no, it's 10.50 now. So that gives us 85. So $85 per day. They were in at 7 a.m. They went to lunch at 1 until 2, or now they had an hour lunch, and then they were at 15. And no adjustments, no MPVs, and we'll say maybe, here you could say, plus 3 miles or whatever might apply to, I'm going to put a little apostrophe here, whatever might apply to the background that were there. And then the next group, let's say we had 3 that were stand-ins, and so they were a little bit more expensive, let's say 110. And, oops, that was not good here. Same thing, they arrived at 7, had lunch from 3 to 3:30. We needed them early to get back into their wardrobe, and they were at 19.5. And it's totally not working. Here we go. So again, and that information, it's either just you collecting all the vouchers and figure that out, or you ask one of your PAs to do a background breakdown, and I'll probably cover that soon in another video because I know that a lot of PAs don't know how to do that. It's fairly important. So here you have your total background and you have the rates, and your production accountant can do simple math. 15 times 85 plus 3 miles at 0.54 cents. You'll know exactly how much we spent that day. There's 2 columns here, I mean 2 sets of this information you see in this template. I usually like to do one for background, one for stand-ins, just to make it more clear, but you can organize things however you want it. Information at the bottom here is just a reflection of the call sheet, which is empty right now, so that's empty, but you want that in there. And now I think we've covered the first page pretty well. So we're going to go to the second page, which is the scary looking one, but really simple. So the back of my PR looks a lot like the back of my call sheet. I'm just going to show you that quick second. Back of my call sheet, and now back of my PR. Boom. So we can see that instead of just a call time column, I've got an in, out, and MPV, but everything else is the same. One thing I've added myself on this template is a place to show when we went to lunch. And basically, well, actually, it's supposed to be lunch in and lunch out. Just so that when you print, and I'll go about why you should print that at the end of the week, but when you print it at the end of the week for the crew, they have their times, but also the lunchtime or second meal. So what you want to do on this document is, of course, usually if your call sheet it's filled, this is going to match, so all the names are going to match. This document is here to show who worked that day and what hours they worked. So how do you get that information? Well, ideally, you've printed what's called a daily timesheet. And I'll go over that document in a different video as well. But daily timesheet is a simple document that you give to every department. You give that to the person that does paperwork. So let's say the best boy or the coordinator, whatever it might be. And you ask them to list all the people that worked that day and what hours they worked. And then they turn in that document at the end of the day, and you, in your trailer or wherever in your office, you will copy that information from each timesheet onto this production report to centralize all of the information. The idea is to, if we had massive overtime with someone on a day, then we know it's the night itself, and we don't have to wait until the end of the week and see a time card come in with 10 hours of overtime. We can anticipate that. So you'll put the position. You'll see there's a 1 in front of it, just like the call sheet, to signify that someone's working. Their name, and then their in, their out, and meal penalty. So let's say my first 80 was done by camera wrap, which was 7:30, so 19.5. And then he went to lunch on time, both for the lunch and second meal if it happened. This is what 0-0 means. The first number is lunch, the second number is second meal. So he had a pretty normal day, we'll say. But let's say my second assistant director, he, let's say, was the early call. So he came in at 6:30, and he had to stay late to do the PR because the second didn't know how to do the PR. And that's a situation that's happened before, and this is why it's really good to know how to do paperwork, because this way you can go early and give the PR to someone else, or second comes early and you're the second and you can arrive later and do the PR properly, whatever works for you. But let's say I had to stay late, and literally I had to stay late as until the last man to get in the time, so until 21. Now there's two things that happen here. The first one is, well, I didn't take an NDB and I didn't go to lunch until 6.5 hours, so boom, I'm owed 1 meal penalty for lunch. But also, I wrapped late, so I'm owed 1 meal penalty for the second meal, so 1-1. There we go. So on most non-union productions, and especially for new media agreements, I'm mentioning those because they're very popular these days, crew members are only entitled to 1 meal penalty per day, even if they were late to lunch, both for lunch and second meal. So in that case, I would have to choose one. Most likely, I would say 0-1. Just because you can always, say, oh, you went had an NDB. I mean, not that you're entitled for anything, but this is the way we're going to present it. But if you're allowed to several meal penalties, then boom, go for it. And that information can be in a daily timesheet, but most people don't really think about calculating it. So it's up to you to figure this out. If you forget, well, it's not a big deal because people will still do their time card at the end of the week, and the payroll accountant will most likely not miss that information. But you want to be as accurate as possible in this document. And like we said before, it's a financial snapshot of the day. So you want to put down all the meal penalties that everyone knows that there's a lot of money that's being spent there. So you're going to do that for the whole crew, right? There's a few people where you can leave it as OC if they're producers and they don't have a specific time. So of course, when that happens, the meal penalty don't matter. For your director and your first AD, their wrap time is always camera wrap, unless your first AD is asked to stay later for a meeting or something, but it's rare. There's some people like director's assistant or some office people who are on call and usually don't, work on an hourly. They have a flat deal with the company, so you can ignore that. Same with, everything on the right side here, accounting, casting, post-production, legal, all these people are usually on a flat. And then we get into the fun stuff. So locations will have insane hours. I'm just mentioning that for fun. Then catering. So usually also on the flat, you do want to point out what hours they worked, just so that at the end of the week they can't say like, well, we had this deal worked out, but we were here way longer because you had twice the crew to feed or whatever. It's not your job to contest anything, but you just want to record the times so that there's evidence to go in whoever's favor. And also you wanna get the names of all the assistants that were here that day, because catering will switch out cooks very, very often. They'll keep the same chef, but they'll have a bunch of different assistants. That's also something very important about those daily timesheets. Sometimes, someone in camera, someone in group will swap they'll go do another job and someone will come and do the ones on this movie, and you're not necessarily aware of it because you're not on set. So you want to pay attention to the names and not just go over the times only. You want to make sure that you look at the names and report who was here that day. Also for catering, meals ordered, that would be the number that was on your call sheet before the day, and the meals served, sorry, is that information you'll get from the chef. Sometimes it's a flat deal, they don't really care, but if you can try to get them to tell you how many plates they've served, and this way, again, if someone says like, well, we're feeding more people than agreed, there's something on the paper that shows whether it's true or not. Craft service, same thing. If it's a drop, you just want to record when they arrive, when they left, and if the person's on the crew, then they are entitled to all the hours, of course. And transportation, usually won't really have the call times, because if you have a transport captain, he will do his own little call sheet for everyone. But you do want to collect times from the captain and put them in there. And the times, make sure that when someone started their day at the parking lot or the studio, wherever, that's the time you got to put in there, not what they reported on set. And finally, we have this last section for vehicles where you would not put any times, but if there's any relevant notes, I would suggest putting them in there, or just at least putting that, that day we had the grip truck and the camera truck, and maybe, it's a day where there was a trailer for a car. Well, just one, sorry. You want to list all the vehicles, and it's a good, indication of the amount of money we spent. Okay. And finally, last but not least, the notes section. So in there goes a lot of stuff. First thing that comes to mind is if someone had a different lunch than what's up there, than the official lunch. Let's say makeup went to lunch early because they were needed right after lunch to take care of some actors. So you'll say makeup, and you can even specify the names necessary. Took an early lunch from 12.5 to 13.0. Boom. And this way, when you print that at the end of the week, they'll have the information. Or, if there is then, because they took an early lunch, and maybe they'll have a meal penalty for the second meal, then we know that that's why they had the meal penalty. Also in the notes, you'll put any form of L&D, aka loss and damage. So for instance, a light bulb, and you'll put like, I don't know, 20K, why not? That would be bad, but never know. 20K broke and will need to be replaced. And that's an indication of money that's going to have to be spent. And also you'll put anything that delayed production. So usually I actually like to do it that way. I'll say production delay, and I'll say Chris, or let's say John Smith. I was going to say Chris Smith, but that's a little hard to say. John Smith, and maybe you want to put his number somewhere, number 1, arrived 20 minutes late. Boom. And sometimes, people arrive late doesn't delay production. In that case, I would say don't even mention it. It's not about saying who's on time and who's late. Their times on the front will differ from the call sheet, so you'll be able to, if you need to go back later on and show that someone was repetitively late, you can. But if it didn't actually delay production, I would say don't put it. If it actually delayed production, then yes, you should definitely do that. Or you could say wardrobe, malfunction. And again, I'm going to do production delay in front. Production delay. Wardrobe malfunction, and maybe it will be LEDs on costume didn't work. Cost, 30 minutes delay. whatever. So all the notes like that, that, you know, everything, basically everything where someone could say, well, the AD team is not doing their job, we're late on this production, and you know why we're late. You know there's a reason that was just not something you could have controlled. You want to put that in there to protect yourself. There's many other things you can put in there. Just the more the merrier. But I can't think of any at the top of my head. But you'll know when you see them, or your first AD will ask you to put something down on the production report. And that's about it. So I mentioned earlier printing this document at the end of the week. So the idea is that when this is completely filled, at the end of the day, you're going to email that document to, like I said before, the producers, line producer, the UPM, maybe the production accountant, and you're gonna email that with the subject line unapproved PR and the day and the date. By day I mean shooting day. And then the next day, most likely you're gonna go over the document with the production manager or line producer to get this document approved. Meaning, if you see something that looks strange, gonna probably talk to the crew member about it, but otherwise, it's gonna approve it by signing it, and you're gonna file this in your day file, or you're gonna make a copy, you're gonna scan it, whatever. This will be the official report for that day of shooting for the movie. And with that official report, at the end of the week, you're gonna take the last 4 days. So let's say we have a typical Monday to Friday week. On Friday, when people have to do their time cards, you're going to print Monday through Thursday production reports, and you're going to staple that together, and you're going to give a copy to each department. And this way, let's say they're the makeup department, they can just look at the top here, and they can say like, oh, on Monday I was in at 7 a.m. and out at, let's say 20. And then on Tuesday I was in at 8 a.m. and out at 8 p.m. And they have, most people will keep track of their time, but if they have a doubt, or at least they have this document to show that, what the hours were. And also it's good because it prevents people from claiming more overtime or less overtime, it happens, than what actually happened. So it's a really good reminder. So again, just print a bunch of copies, staple the 4 days together, give that to the department with a bunch of time cards, and then they do their own thing. And of course, for Friday, the 5th day, they'll put it on their time card directly, but you also want them to fill timesheets so that you can do your PR for day 5. That's about it for all the basics of production reports. I'm not sure, maybe I forgot something, I don't know, but you should know enough that you can do your own, and I feel like I've talked forever, so I should go. Feel free to ask me questions if you have any, and otherwise, see you in the next one.